Well, Ryan, it's Wednesday morning. We're both just out of beds, and it's finally time for me to win the channel to be talking about Celtic once more. We've been trying beer every morning on the European Championships of years, and there's been a severe lack of Celtic talk. But we're going to give you your fill this morning as me and Ryan react live to the UEFA Champions League second round qualifying draw. Ryan, we're back in the big leagues, mate. There's a chance once again for us to try and get there to the full thing this time. The question is this time going to be the one, because it's harder than ever, mate?
I've not got my hopes up too high, to be perfectly honest with you. We've not done so well on the supposed easier route in the past couple of years, so I don't know how we're going to do against some of the bigger boys. I mean, this isn't like a Reykjavik or a whatever that Calju team that we played a couple of years ago.
Somi Calju?
Nom Calju, I think it was. Because they played in pink.
Right.
Three names, three sort of household names that you link with European football that you know about. We've definitely had our encounters with some of them in the past. I'm going to try and be as optimistic as I can, but it's a tough ask so early on in a manager's reign to get us through to the Champions League.
Well, we'll come on to the details of the draw in a moment. We'll give you all the information you need to know as we approach that draw. There's a lot to talk about. There is 3 teams Celtic can play against, as Ryan has alluded to there. But we'll come on to that in a moment. We'll come into all of that because, and you know what, let's be positive for a minute. Let's not talk about Celtic for just a couple of minutes here, Ryan. We have been having a feast of football, you could say, over the past week since the Euros began last Friday. It's been very good. It's been very exciting, Ryan. Scotland, of course, didn't get off to the greatest start. We'll need to try and resurrect our hope on Friday. But so far, are you happy with what you've seen in the tournament? Any teams in particular that are standing out to you as we've seen everybody play now?
Even though there was only one goal last night in the game, I thought the France-Germany game last night was incredible. Some of the football that was on show, just watching Kante and Pogba at their best was just scintillating stuff. All the games have been pretty impressive. I've not really been bored with any of them, bar the England game, funnily enough. That was the only game that sort of I was kind of on my phone for most of it, but that was just due to the way that Croatia were playing. They just don't look like the same team they were 3-4 years ago. In terms of other teams, I quite enjoyed watching Belgium. Belgium were really good, and then Italy on the opening day as well. They were good as well. So there's definitely 5 or 6 teams that I think could easily win it. So it's all up in the air at the moment. We just need to see who does well in the second round of fixtures, and we'll see who looks more like favourites. Because at the moment you can't really look into much because teams are cagey. They want to get off to the best possible start, and so they'll do anything that they can to win. So we'll see what happens in the next round of fixtures.
As you can see, I'm wearing my Germany top today. Disappointed with that result last night because obviously I'm rooting for them to win the whole. Well, I don't know why I'm rooting for Germany to win the whole thing, but besides Scotland, because I've got France in the sweepstake for TSF. So really, I should be chanting "Allez, la boy, allez" as high and mighty as I can. Has there been anything so far that stood out as a big moment to you? Something that your favourite moment so far in the tournament? For me, there's one and there's one only, and that's the Goran Pandev goal, the youngest ever scorer for Macedonia at a tournament ever at 37 years old. Pandev's goal is a standout moment for me so far.
He seems to have more hair than he did 10 years ago, which is mental because his hairline was awful at one point. I can't really say too much about hairlines. In terms of moments, definitely wasn't my favourite moment. You couldn't even talk about it as your favourite moment, but the moment that stood out for me was that Eriksson one a couple of days ago, man. That was absolutely shocking from all angles, from a football standpoint to a broadcaster standpoint.
Just a general life standpoint as well.
It was a Saturday evening game. You're like, is the Euros even going to go ahead if something major happens here? I'm glad that everything seems to be back on track and Eriksson himself seems to be fine, but that was a real worrying moment for a human as well as a competition as well. Obviously, the human part was much more important, but that was a mental night because the games aren't supposed to overlap each other, but you found for like a good 15-20 minutes that there was 2 games on at the one time, and there was a lot of talk that the Denmark game shouldn't have even been happening at that point. So I wasn't even sure what game to watch at that point. You were like, what game do you watch here? But I did turn over to the Belgium game because I just wanted to watch Lukaku and Torgan Hazard and the rest.
Yeah, it was bizarre that we were in the pub watching it, and even here the pub just kind of stood still. When it all happened, it was a really weird, anxious feeling watching the game. You know, things didn't look as though they were going well, and you know what? I'm very happy for Christian and his family that things have turned out for the best, and prayers and thoughts have been with him all weekend. It's not what you want to see on a football pitch. It's just something that can't be helped. And look, hopefully the best happens for Christian now. I don't know what's going to happen with, of course, his career and such. There'll be more details that will come out as time goes on, but you know what? As long as he's up and he's fighting and he's fit, and he seemed to share that information last night. That's what you love to see. We'll turn our attention back to the Champions League draw for the second qualifying round. The draw commences at 11 a.m. our time, so that's in a couple of minutes' time, Ryan, for this round. We've actually been given a bit of an advantage in the sense that usually we would enter the competition at the first qualifying round, Ryan. So we have enhanced our chances of making it a bit easier, but at the same time, by giving ourselves harder opponents, we're finishing second in the league. I still feel like we are vastly unprepared for this set of qualifiers, Ryan.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I think even if we'd signed players in January specifically for this job, we'd be severely unprepared just due to the turnover of staff that's both on and off the pitch. We seem to be in a sort of limbo at the moment here. And when you're seeing certain names getting linked with us, you're like, what is our scouting system all about? I know we'll probably talk about them in a couple of minutes. Obviously, you'll know who I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, who are we scouting? What is happening? Who is actually dealing with our transfers at the moment? We don't have a head of football operations, the one that dealt with the transfers previously, Nick Hammond. That role is still vacant. It's been vacant for about 2-3 months, nearly as long as the manager's job was. Yep. That's concerning to me because if that person isn't signing the players because they're not there, who is? Is Lowell still get a say in the transfers? Is Dominic Mackay signing players? Because that would concern me, because he said himself he's not familiar with football. He's more of a sort of business sort of guy.
Yep.
And if we're selling players, and if we're not selling players, if we're signing players purely on a business standpoint, that just doesn't seem to be the right fit. We need quality, not quantity just now. Actually, I say that we need both, but we somehow need to find a happy medium ground, or a sort of happy in the middle. No, I'm not confident. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can, but I am really not confident. It's just due to the situation that we find ourselves in.
Look, you look at the three teams that we can play there, and they're three teams who have quality. They have the ability to damage us and really bring the game to us. They're the kind of teams that we would struggle against in the Europa League of last season, Ryan, to be quite honest. So it's not going to be easy. Let's touch on that. The draw is ready to commence now. The intro is playing, but I don't know when they'll exactly start the draw. We should be able to avoid all the drama and the kind of fandom that you get with these draws, because it is only the qualifying rounds. We're not going to get Andrei Shevchenko shipped out to tell us his life story, for example. We're going to just be getting right into the draw. I think they're standing beside the pots right now. I see a lot of people. It's Michael Hieselschwert, who is the UEFA head of club competitions, as we all know. You will recognise his face. You see him, who's standing there ready to commence the draw. Just wanted to say his name. A lot of people are asking, what channel is the game on? Is the draw on? You want to watch it? It's on UEFA.com or YouTube on UEFA's official channel. If you want to watch it, it's not being broadcasted on live television. Now, the point I was going to come to before this draw does commence, the chat is talking away about who we can draw. We'll come to that in a quick moment. Eric Sviatchenko, Ryan, has been linked back with Celtic, a player who everybody who's been watching me for a long time, since this channel started, will know I was a massive fan of Eric Sviatchenko. I loved Eric Sviatchenko, and to be quite honest, I was gutted when we let him go. To see the man himself come back to an extent, I'm like, oh, brilliant, my boy Eric's back. But I must be honest. I must be realistic about this. It's a very worrying sign, as you've already touched on with this recruitment. Are we just moving backwards?
Yeah, I don't get why we're back in for him. Has he suddenly gained a yard of pace and 2 inches of height? Has he miraculously gained something? Because, I mean,
I almost think that apparently he's been actually doing quite well at Michelin, but I mean, take that with a pinch of salt.
I don't want to be ageist to him, but he's 29 as well. There's not much of a sell-on value as well. We'd be bringing him in for experience, and I suppose we do need experience at the back. We need numbers at the back as well as experience, and he was a good defender for his first time round, but he was shipped out by Rodgers quite early on. So, I mean, I'm not against the guy himself, but I'm against what the guy stands for in terms of a scouting standpoint. We should be going for younger players that we can build, that can go into the first team, yes, but we can sell on in a couple of years for good money. Rangers have done that. They'll probably get a good fee for Hollander. They'll probably get a good fee for Goldson. They're younger players.
I've seen a few people.
I
completely agree with you, Ryan. This isn't me trying to throw you under the bus, but I've seen the same kind of conversation happen on the other end and saying, "Oh well, Rangers have brought in Alan McGregor and Stephen Davis, who turned out to be two of their best players last season." Would you agree with that to an extent? Because I agree with you. I think we should be primarily aiming to bring in younger players who we can sell on and develop. But do you think there's any wiggle room for that sort of conversation, that the older guys can still come in and do a job, especially when we need leaders in the changing room?
It depends, but if we were bringing Sviatchenko in for that sort of role, for like an experienced sort of role, you would imagine him being like 32, 33, and maybe only going into a handful of games, like maybe like a sort of Kolo Toure. I know he was 36, but he was a bit of a freak of nature. No, it just because he's 29 in the sort of prime of his career, or the so-called prime of his career, you would expect him to be playing most weeks. And Don't get me wrong, a couple of years ago, a back two of Julian and Sviatchenko would be great, and maybe it will work for a season or two. But long term, it's not long term planning; it's short term planning. It's filling holes right now. It's stopping the rot in terms of positions. It just still goes back to last summer, when I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but when you're trying to like have makeshift defenders such as Shane Duffy, who were only going to be there for a season, in place of forking out a wee bit of money for Mark McKenzie, who is going to be a star. Mm-hmm. He's doing well for Genk for all intensive purposes, but I just wish we would go down the younger road. I don't know why we ditched our transfer strategy last season. Was that just to go for the 10? Was it to risk the 10? That obsession of 10 that Lennon goes on about? Mm-hmm. I don't know. He was a good player for us, Sviatchenko, but I would hope he's maybe third choice or fourth choice defender, and we're going to get some proper quality targets in as well.
Well, just to give you all who are watching, over 550 viewers live at the moment on the channel. Thank you very much for checking us out. The draw is commencing in, I believe it's in Switzerland, the draw today. It is commencing, but it's not Celtic's spot that has been drawn yet. I believe, I don't know if it's a first round or if it's the seeded second round or something. I don't know what it is, but it's not Celtic yet who have started this. So let's have a quick look at the three teams we can get, Ryan, and maybe talk about who we would prefer, if there is one to prefer, because I'm not confident to take on any of these sides, to be quite honest, at the moment, with the lack of preparation over at Parkhead. The first team we've got is Midtjylland, who, of course, Erik Sviatchenko currently plays for, a player who we are interested in bringing back to the club. They are in there. They've gone a wee bit off the boil since they qualified for last season's Champions League, I believe. But yeah, they're there anyway. A good side, Erik Sviatchenko in the team. And there's someone who, of course, Rangers have played in recent years as well. Rangers beat them 7-3 on aggregate, just to give clarification here. So that is the kind of quality that Rangers showed against them, and the kind of quality we should be able to show against them if we were prepared for the game. But I think things might go quite differently. The second set of opponents, Rapid Vienna. It's a bit of a tough draw here. I mean, considering the fact that we usually take on the likes of Nomi Kalju, Linfield, Lincoln Red Imps and all that in this stage of the competition, it's a difficult one. They are in the non-champions path just like us. They failed to win the Austrian Bundesliga, as Salzburg with Jesse Marsch went to win the title, as we all know. But a very good threat, and a team who, once again, have played Rangers over the past few years. Played them in the Europa League groups a few years ago when they had Bolly and Golly in their side.
Remember that?
as well. And then finally, the last team, another team who have played Rangers over the past few years, is Galatasaray of Turkey. They are one of the biggest sides in Europe, as we know. They're a very household name. We've all grew up knowing who Galatasaray are, one of the biggest teams in Turkey and in Europe, and probably one of the biggest teams outside the kind of traditional top 5 leagues. They missed out in the European qualification last year after Rangers knocked them out of the Europa League. But they narrowly missed out on they're a very good team, Ryan. 84 points in the Turkish Super League this season, missing out narrowly to Besiktas, who won the league. Key players on the Galatasaray side, you ask? Just a Mr. Radamel Falcao up front.
They've got my favourite ever striker. Up front.
Is that your favourite ever striker?
I love, absolutely adore Falcao.
So, out of those 3 teams, Ryan, they all sound a bit terrifying in their own way, but is there any that you prefer?
I was looking at the teams last night, and it's quite a sad way to look at it, but in terms of names that I recognised, maybe that sounds like a non-football hipster, that sounds like a Celtic da way to look at teams, but the team that I didn't really recognise a lot of names with, funnily enough, was Rapid Vienna. Now, I know Rapid Vienna would give us a difficult game. They're always quite well drilled. They're an Austrian team, so that's kind of what you expect with them. They're kind of like best of the rest in that league, because Salzburg are expected to just run over teams because they just get that quality of talent. And they're basically a feeder team to Leipzig in a sense. But Midtjylland were kind of giving me a fright as well. They've got Pione Sisto, who was playing for Celta Vigo a couple of years ago. I remember him playing for Midtjylland back 3-4 years ago, and he looked a great player. If there's anyone we're signing from Midtjylland, I would take him. Him in the prime of his career, 26 years old. He's a great wide player, and you must be able to get him for a 5 or 6 million. I mean, he'd be proper quality. But out of the 3, I'd probably take Vienna. Although Galatasaray might not. They do. The thing about Turkish teams, they don't travel well. And I don't know if that's a sort of stereotype or a sort of it's just a sort of fact that goes about the place. But Turkish teams don't tend to travel well this time of year. I don't know how their season works, but out of the 3, I would want Vienna. I would think.
You're going for Vienna?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Midtjylland. That's who I would like us to face. I feel like, look, there's not really a point in saying, "Oh, this is who I want us to face," because I've already said, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't know if we'll make it through. I think we would.
No, me neither.
I think we'll be looking at the prospect of playing in a Europa League or Conference League football, perhaps. But there's no point in saying it. But Midtjylland for me are probably the team who I'd rather. I hear what you're saying about Vienna. I think all games are just equally as difficult. But for me, I'm going to go Midtjylland. If we take Eric Sviatchenko off them, they're taking one of their best players. And then I think it's a team we could beat. If Rangers beat them 7-3, again, it gives me a wee bit of faith we can do something.
Do you know, I'm in a sort of sick and twisted way, I'm hoping we do get Midtjylland as well, because then it might put all those Sviatchenko rumours to bed. Like, I've been reading stuff today. It might be further on than people expect. But it would look bad for both Midtjylland. Well, it would look more bad for Midtjylland, you've got to say, if they were to sell a player to their Champions League rivals. Why would they do that? I don't really want Sviatchenko back at the club, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I do take the point that he was nominated for Belgium. Not Belgium, I'm having a nightmare here with the teams. Danish Player of the Year. But it's never good the second time round. It's never as good. I'd much rather we go for someone fresh, but it's just my opinion. But it's a bit of a nightmare. It's a bit of a nightmare scenario. This is what happens when you finish second in the league. You get given these sort of ties in the middle of July.
I mean, we've not even really considered the fact, and let's not get carried away here because it's not going to happen. But imagine both Scottish sides did make it to the Champions League group stage somehow. What a bizarre set of affairs that would be, considering, you know, the past few years, particularly in Scottish football. I mean, Celtic haven't been in the Champions League group stage alone since the 2017-18 campaign. Rangers haven't been in the Champions League since 2010-11. You know, it would be bizarre if both teams somehow made it all the way there.
In terms of, I don't want to give them too much credit. I know a lot of their fans are in the comments, but they've had really difficult ties as well over the past couple of years. When you look at, they've had teams like Midtjylland when they're going into the Europa League. They've done 4 qualifying rounds, but it always seems that Rangers are better equipped for these sort of games. These sort of games that they have to both defend and attack. They have the players that are equipped to take the pressure and then run on the counter away from home in Europe. They've done it against Ufa, they've done it against Midtjylland, they've done it against Galatasaray last year as well. That was a game I thought they would lose, but Galatasaray were so disappointing in that game. I remember watching it; they just looked washed up. A lot of those Turkish teams do sometimes when they've got players that maybe at the end of their careers that just can't up it in European competition. But got to give them credit. I mean, they've got through to the group stages, and I think they'll be quite well equipped to get into the Champions League this year, especially for an easier sort of route.
You look at Rangers; they've started their preparation. And Christ, by the way, that's a long draw for, I think, which is like the first/second round, because we're still firing through those teams. But you look at Rangers at the other side of the city, and to look at it through a neutral sort of set of eyes, if you can, and just to look at it unbiasedly, they're starting their preparation early. They're getting things done. They've signed Fashion Sakala. They made some good signings in January in the likes of Scott Wright and Jake Simpson, and they're still looking to add to that. Gerrard's doing work. Whereas, as you've said, we've got a vacated position which deals with our transfers. So, you look at Rangers, who are certainly miles ahead in terms of preparing for hopefully what will be a Champions League qualification compared to us.
Yeah, they're well prepared, and we've not even got people in their positions for positions that we need, especially in a rebuilding season. That work should be done just now to get players over the line. Like, we should have that. This is the case when it was reported in March, April that we were looking at guys to get a director of football sort of role. They should have been in the door by April max. Why are we in June? Start of June, the players come back on Friday. The players that aren't involved in international duty.
It's crazy.
That's quite scary.
Do you think Andrew would be there?
I don't even know if he's in the country yet. It's kind of tight-lipped about the whole thing.
I must admit, even though we have officially, in Spunk Phones in the chat, interestingly, even though we have appointed a manager, to me it still feels like we haven't appointed a manager. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, oh, here he is, and then that's been it. We've had nothing really else. There's not even been a TV interview, a BBC interview. There's not been any sort of communication. The club have just kind of went by with things as they normally would, and it feels like there is still a vacated role at Celtic that is important to how we run.
I don't want to mention his name too much, because obviously I've mentioned his name a lot over the times of May and June and April as well. But I mean, I think people are still thinking about Eddie Howe. We're still a tiny bit disappointed, and maybe once Postecoglou's in Scotland, we'll feel a wee bit better about things, and we'll be.
Sorry to cut you off, Ryan. Sorry to cut you off. I think more people might be thinking about fucking Neil Lennon after he was coming out with more comments yesterday, God's sake.
Thank God we didn't do one of these live podcasts, or I would have been accused of being a Neil Lennon hater again, man. It's just
accused.
He's just a renter mouth, honestly. At this point, he slags us more than Chris Commons and Charlie Nicholas and Andy Walker, and he was the one that was taking issue with Andy Walker's comments earlier on in the season. He's just he is the quickest soup taker I've ever seen come out of Celtic. I mean, his position still. I mean, he's the seat's probably still warm from the time he was manager, and he's already out slagging us. It's a privilege that he got the job 2 years ago, because he wasn't qualified. So the fact that he's attacking the fans who have paid for his wages, essentially, is an absolute disgrace. And I said he's not welcome back at Celtic Park, and maybe that's a wee bit harsh because I'm angry at the moment with him. But I really don't see a situation, if he continues to attack the fans like us on public media without an interview sorry.
Just wrap up, Ryan. It's just about to be us. Wrap up.
Is it just about to start?
Get your final point out.
No, he's just annoyed me. Maybe there's forgiveness in the future, but he's just annoyed me now.
Well, there's a lot. There's like it's a podcast in its own, as you said. But let's move on very seamlessly because it is time for Celtic to be drawn out to see who will face in the second qualifying round of the UEFA Champions League. Of course, we've already touched on it. It could be Rapid Vienna, it could be Midtjylland, it could be Galatasaray. Those are the three teams we can take on. But the draw commences, and Mr. I can't even remember his name now. Himmelschmidt, is it? Is drawn out first. The first team out the pot is Rapid Vienna. So there you go. There's your first team. I'm trying my best not to look at the chat because I don't want it spoiled. They shouldn't be ahead of me anyway because I've got it on live, you know what I mean? So they shouldn't be ahead of me. But Rapid Vienna is first out. They will take on Sparta Prague of the Czech Republic. So, Ryan, there's your pick away. We won't be getting Rapid Vienna. There's a donation, by the way. Thank you very much to Sean Farron, who donates $2.99.
Don't need that.
Ryan, you can. I'm not going to even bring it up on screen, but thank you very much, Sean. It's much appreciated. So the first team out of Rapid Vienna, they will take on Sparta Prague in the Champions League second round qualifiers. We're just waiting on us then. Is this going to be us here? It is. It's Celtic Football Club. Celtic FC has been drawn out the pot. Will it be Galatasaray? Will it be FC Midtjylland of Denmark? Ryan, make a quick prediction. Who's it going to be?
Midtjylland, kill the rumours now.
Well, let's see. The team Celtic will be taking on in the second round is Midtjylland. There you go. We got FC Midtjylland. Will the move of Eric Sviatchenko be at jeopardy as Celtic draw Midtjylland? Ryan, initial reactions to the thought, mate?
Yeah, it's not the worst draw we could have got. I think Galatasaray would have been a far worse draw considering the players that they've got. But Midtjylland have players that we know and players that we know can hurt us. But I mean, Rangers done well last season against them, so I don't want to say quietly confident because we're in no position to be confident about things. But it's a tie that we could win, definitely. It's not like it's an impossible task.
Yeah, it was a team that I said earlier that I fancied getting, but as we've already alluded to, no tie here is easy. The main conversation with the 800 viewers who are watching here, just to break it to you, Celtic are playing FC Midtjylland in the second round qualifiers. I feel like it is a team that if we just hurry up and get Ange's foot in the door and make some signings, we've definitely got that's the annoying thing. Any other season, I'd look at this draw and go, I fancy Celtic to easily win this. But now it becomes a lot more difficult just because we don't have our foot in the door with preparation.
Yeah, I mean, if Brendan Rodgers was manager, I'd be quite confident about us sort of seeing through this tie. But I mean, we'll
be a lot better. We'll be a lot better.
Yeah, I think because the team will be properly coached this time round, and we'll have an idea of how to play under Ange. I know people say we need time to sort of get used to his ways, but he kind of needs to hit the ground running. But if he is well coached, if he is a good coach and he's quite meticulous and thorough, as people say, then we should be okay for these sort of situations. I mean, I'm quietly confident, but that's just me trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, that's because we've spoke about this, haven't we? I think it was in the last podcast after we spoke to Harper of the Australians podcast. You know, he had kind of convinced you to be a bit more optimistic, a bit more positive, and that's how we started that show. It's like, look, we've had our 6 months of just being entirely negative. We've been talking angrily week in, week out. It's time to be positive. It's time to be a bit more optimistic. And that's the feeling we just kind of want to have here now, isn't it? It's just to try and be a bit more optimistic. But Celtic just don't make that easy at all.
No, I know. It's not like Celtic to make it easy whatsoever. It's always going to be difficult when it's Celtic involved. But we'll just see how it goes. It's a bit of a baptism of fire for Postecoglou. But this is why he'll have taken the job, to challenge himself in these sort of situations, and we'll see how he gets on. I'm guessing who did Galatasaray get? Do you know? They would have got.
Oh Christ! I forgot actually who they got. It's a good question. I turned it off just before I looked. I think the draw has now ended, so I can't even check. Anybody that knows who Galatasaray got, feel free to let us know in the chat. Lewis Laird has stepped up with a big £2 donation, massive from Lewis. Thanks very much. He says, thoughts on Besiktas not keeping Golly. I didn't even know. He's broke that news to me there. They're not keeping returning to Celtic then. Ryan, thoughts on that?
Do you know, I think if he hadn't got injured, thered have been more of a chance at the Shakespeare taking him on in a permanent deal. But he got a bad injury quite early on in his career, in his sort of Istanbul career. I'm just going to say Istanbul because that second name is so difficult to say. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But, do you know, I'm going to be controversial. Bring him back and give him another chance. Why not? Because do you know what? In some of the games in Europe, I thought he looked pretty good.
Yep.
Yes, he's a bit erratic, but we're struggling for left backs at the moment. And I think we need to give him another chance and see where he's at before casting him away. I thought he was quite unfairly treated with his incident. I know it was a shocking thing to do to go to Spain for specific reasons that we won't mention. But, other players. He went away to get his hole, basically. But other players broke the rules as well, and then they get treated like saints 2 weeks later because they done well in training. But they didn't get taken on the trip to France. But enough about Lee Griffiths. He deserves another chance because other players have had 8 or 9 chances.
Any opportunity you get.
Do you know, I'm still living in that sort of purgatory, that sort of fear that he'll get given another year. I mean, if we're looking at Sviatchenko, then there's every possibility that Griffiths will get given another year. Because if we're gonna shop on players that we know, look at Boyata. He's only got a year left in his deal at Hertha Berlin. I'd bring him in as a captain.
By the way, I love this comment.
Wow. I mean, that doesn't even deserve to have like a super chat next to it. That just deserves to get read out without a super chat because it's that good.
There's my phone away. Anyway, look, listen, we've been live for about half an hour, so we'll quickly wrap up. There's a lot to talk about. We've got a podcast out there at the weekend, which is going to be a surprise to some people. I'll not break what the surprise is yet, Ryan, but you know what the surprise of the podcast is. You look pretty blank as if you don't know what the surprise of the podcast is. You should know. You should know what the surprise of the podcast is.
I actually don't know. Was it in the group chat?
There's a certain person that will be doing certain jobs because a certain someone won't be on the podcast. And
yes. The lunatics have taken over the proverbial asylum. That's all I'm going to say.
Asylum, yep. I'll be on Gig Pod this evening, so that'll be in another asylum. So that'll be fun. But no, listen, for people who may have missed it and may have just missed out the kind of the conversation around the draw, Celtic will take on FC Midtjylland in the Champions League second round qualifiers. Interestingly, do you know what? One thing we never actually, I believe, I've seen a few people, I see Doug asking there, I've seen a few people asking, when will the games take place? When do they get played? I think it is July 10th or July 11th. I believe it'll be one of those 2 dates for the first fixture, which is interesting, because we didn't even touch on the fact we're back to normal. It's not a one-tie affair. There will be 2 legs. There will be a home. There'll be an away leg. We are returning to a sense of normality with that. The disaster of Ferencváros should be avoided this time.
Yeah, I think we played that game as if it was a 2-legged affair. Like, we'll just take the 2-1 and get out of there. I mean, I know it was Celtic Park, but it was only the 1 leg, and it was a bit of a disaster to go out like that. It's mental to think that was.
Not to cut you off.
I was wondering that because
it's the 20th and 21st of July. Sorry, my apologies. I remember it was a 0 and a 1, and I thought it was 10 to 11. My apologies. 20th.
I was panicking there because that seemed. I mean, the 20th does seem like only a few weeks ago, and it is. But the 10th, man, you're giving me a fright here.
My apologies. I hold my hands up. We
need to get Sviatchenko in tomorrow. Never mind that.
Yeah.
He probably won't come in now. I don't think. I don't see why Midtjylland should sell a player to their rivals unless he's got a release clause or something that they can't control.
Yeah, so that's it. The draw is done. We're taking on Midtjylland. Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by you this morning. Celtic have 1 month to prepare themselves, and we'll talk about that as much as we can on the channel on the lead up to the second round qualifier of the Champions League. If you have enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back with content. We'll be back with a podcast as well. And all I can say is enjoy the Euros today. Some good games, 3 more games. As I said, this feast of football, it's just great, Ryan, isn't it? It's fantastic.
It's back to 3 games. Like yesterday, I was struggling. What did I do at 2 o'clock?
I know.
I was just sitting there. I was like, did I go out and work? Did I sit in the house and do nothing? I just sat there and did nothing until 5 o'clock.
Yep.
It's good to have the 3 games on. I do enjoy that. It's become sort of ingrained into my routine now since Saturday, you would say. I'm really enjoying it.
Right, well, I'll let you go. Maybe get some kip again if you want to go back to your bed or no, Ryan. And I'll let the viewers go and do what they want to do as well. Thank you for joining us this morning as Celtic try and begin their qualification for the Champions League. And we'll see you all next time, if I can